I will be reading The Inner Beauty by Maurice Maeterlinck, 1911. Contents: The Inner Beauty, Silence, and the Invisible Goodness. The Inner Beauty. Nothing in the whole world is so athirst for beauty as the soul, nor is there anything to which beauty clings so readily. There is nothing in the world capable of such spontaneous uplifting, of such speedy ennoblement, nothing that offers more scrupulous obedience to the pure and noble commands it receives. There is nothing in the world that yields deeper submission to the empire of a thought that is loftier than other thoughts. And on this earth of ours, there are but few souls that can withstand the domination of the soul that has suffered itself to become beautiful. In all truth, might it be said that beauty is the unique ailment of our soul, for in all places does it search for beauty, and it perishes not of hunger even in the most degraded of lives. For indeed, nothing of beauty can pass by and be altogether unperceived. Perhaps does it never pass by save only in our unconsciousness, but its action is no less puissant in gloom of night than by light of day. The joy it procures may be less tangible, but other difference there is none. Look at the most ordinary of men, at a time when a little beauty has contrived to steal into their darkness. They have come together, it matters not where and for no special reason, but no sooner are they assembled than their very first thought would seem to be to close the great doors of life. Yet has each of them, when alone, more than once lived in accord with his soul. He has loved, perhaps; of a surety he has suffered. Inevitably must he too have heard the sounds that come from the distant country of splendor and terror, and many an evening has he bowed down in silence before the laws that are deeper than the sea. And yet when these men are assembled, it is with the basest of things that they love to debauch themselves. They have a strange, indescribable fear of beauty, and as their number increases, so does this fear become greater, resembling indeed their dread of silence, or of a verity that is too pure. And so true is it that were one of them to have done something heroic in the course of a day, he would ascribe wretched motives to his conduct, thereby endeavoring to find excuses for it. And these motives would lie readily to his hand in that lower region where he and his fellows were assembled. And yet listen, a proud and lofty word has been spoken, a word that has in a measure undammed the springs of life. For 1 instant has a soul dared to reveal itself, even such as it is in love and sorrow, such as it is in the face of death and in solitude that dwells around the stars of night. Disquiet prevails on some faces. There is astonishment, and others smile. But have you never felt at moments such as these how unanimous is the fervor wherein every soul admires, and how unspeakably even the very feeblest, from the remotest depths of its dungeon, approves the word it has recognized as akin to itself? For they have all suddenly sprung to life again, and in the primitive and normal atmosphere that is their own. And could you but hearken with angels' ears, I doubt not but you would hear mightiest applause in the kingdom of amazing radiance, wherein the souls do dwell. Do you not think that even the most timid of them would take courage unto themselves, were but similar words to be spoken every evening? Do you not think that men would live purer lives? And yet, though the word come not again, still will something momentous have happened, that must have still more momentous trace behind. Every evening will its sisters recognize the soul that pronounced the word, and henceforth the conversation, never so trivial, its mere presence will, I know not how, add thereto something of majesty. Whatever else betide, there has been a change that we cannot determine. No longer will such absolute power be vested in the baser side of things, and henceforth even the most terror-stricken of souls will know that there is somewhere a place of refuge. Certain it is that the natural and primitive relationship of soul to soul is a relationship of beauty. For beauty is the only language of our soul. None other is known to it. It has no other life. It can produce nothing else, and nothing else can it take interest. And therefore it is that the most oppressed, nay, the most degraded of souls, if it may truly be said that a soul can be degraded, immediately hail with exclamation every thought, every word or deed that is great and beautiful. Beauty is the only element wherewith the soul is organically connected, and it has no other standard of judgment. This is brought home to us at every moment of our life, and is no less evident to the man by whom beauty may more than once have been denied than to him who is ever seeking it in his heart. Should a day come when you stand in the profoundest need of another's sympathy, would you go to him who was wont to greet the passage of beauty with a sneering smile? Would you go to him whose shake of the head had sullied a generous action, or a mere impulse that was pure? Even though perhaps you had been of those who had commended him, you would none the less, when it was truth that knocked at your door, turn to the man who had known how to prostrate himself in the love. In its very depths had your soul passed its judgment, and it is this silent and unerring judgment that will rise to the surface after 30 years perhaps, and send you towards a sister who shall be more truly you than you are yourself, for that she has been nearer to beauty. There needs but little to encourage beauty in our soul, so little to awaken the slumbering angels, or perhaps is there no need of awakening it? It is enough that we lull them not to sleep. It requires more effort to fall, perhaps, than to rise. Can we, without putting constraint upon ourselves, confine our thoughts to everyday things at times when the sea stretches before us, and we are face to face with the night? And what soul is there but knows that it is ever confronting the sea, ever in the presence of eternal night? Did we but dread beauty less, it would come about that naught else in life would be visible. For in reality it is beauty that underlies everything. It is beauty alone that exists. There is no soul but is conscious of this, none that is not in readiness. But where are those that hide not their beauty? And yet must one of them begin? Why not dare to be the one to begin? The others are all watching eagerly around us like little children in front of a marvelous palace. They press upon the threshold, whispering to each other and peering through every crevice, but there is not one who dares to put his shoulder to the door. They are all waiting for some grown-up person to come and fling it open, but hardly ever does such one pass by. And yet, what is needed to become the grown-up person for whom they lie in wait? So little. The soul is not exacting. A thought that is almost beautiful, a thought that you speak not, but that you cherish within you at this moment, will irradiate you as though you were a transparent vase. They will see it, and their greeting to you will be very different than had you been meditating how best to deceive your brother. We are surprised when certain men tell us that they have never come across real ugliness, that they cannot conceive that a soul can be base. Yet need there be no cause for surprise. These men had begun. They themselves had been the first to be beautiful, and had therefore attracted all the beauty that passed by, as a lighthouse that attracts vessels from the four corners of the horizon. Some there are who complain of women, for instance, never dreaming that the first time a man meets a woman a single word or thought that denies the beauty or profound will be enough to poison, forever his existence in her soul. For my part, said a sage to me one day, I have never come across a single woman who did not bring to me something that was great. He was great himself, first of all. Therein lay his secret. There is one thing only that the soul can never forgive. It is to have been compelled to behold or share or to pass close to an ugly action, word, or thought. It cannot forgive, for forgiveness here were but the denial of itself. And yet, with the generality of men, ingenuity, strength, and skill do but imply that the soul must first of all be banished from their life, and that every impulse that lies too deep must be carefully brushed aside. Even in love do they act thus, and therefore it is that the woman, who is so much nearer the truth, can scarcely ever live a moment of the true life with them. It is as though men dreaded the contact of their soul and were anxious to keep its beauty at immeasurable distance. Whereas, on the contrary, we should endeavor to move in advance of ourselves. If at this moment you think or say something that is too beautiful to be true in you, if you have but endeavored to think or say it today, on the morrow it will be true. We must try to be more beautiful than ourselves. We shall never distance our soul. We can never err when it is question of silent or hidden beauty. Besides, so long as the spring within us is limpid, it matters but little whether error there be or not. But do any of us ever dream of making the slightest unseen effort? And yet, in the domain where we are, everything is effective, for that everything is waiting. All the doors are unlocked. We have but pushed them open, and the palace is full of manacled queens. A single word will very often suffice to clear a mountain of refuse. Why not have the courage to meet a base question with a noble answer? Do you imagine it would pass quite unnoticed or merely arouse surprise? Do you not think it would be more akin to the discourse that would naturally be held between two souls? We know not where it may give encouragement, where freedom. Even he who rejects your word will, in spite of himself, have taken a step towards the beauty that is within him. Nothing of beauty dies without having purified something, nor can aught of beauty be lost. Let us not be afraid of sowing it along the road. It may remain there for weeks or years, but like a diamond, it cannot dissolve, and finally there will pass by someone who its glitter will attract. He will pick it up and go on his way, rejoicing. Then why keep back a lofty, beautiful word? For that you doubt whether others will understand? An instant of higher goodness was impending over you. Why hinder its coming, even though you believe not that those about you will profit thereby? What if you are among men of the valley? Is that sufficient reason for checking the instinctive movement of your soul towards the mountain peaks? Does darkness rob deep feeling of its power? Have the blind not but their eyes wherewith to distinguish those who love them from those who love them not? Can the beauty not exist that is not understood? And is there not in every man something that does not understand in regions far beyond what he seems to understand, far beyond, too, what he believes he understands? Even to the very wretchedest of all, even to me, one day the loftiest minded creature it has ever been my happiness to know, even to the very wretchedest of all, I never have the courage to say anything in reply that is ugly or mediocre. I have for a long time followed that man's life and have seen the inexplicable power he exercises over the most obscure, the most unapproachable, the blindest, even the most rebellious of souls. For no tongue can tell the power of a soul that strives to live in the atmosphere of beauty and is actively beautiful in itself. And indeed, is it not the quality of this activity that renders life either miserable or divine? If we could but probe to the root of things, it might well be discovered that it is by the strength of some souls that others are beautiful, that others are sustained in life. Is it not the idea we each form of certain chosen ones that constitutes the only living, effective morality? But in this idea, how much is there of the soul that is of jealousy or love, fear or envy, happiness or unhappiness? Here, not to know oneself means to be unconscious of all the divine that throbs in man. As we wander from the gods within us, so does the ugliness enwrap us. As we discover them, so do we become more beautiful. But it is only by revealing the divine that is in us that we may discover the divine in others. Needs must one God beckon to another, and no signal is so imperceptible, but they will every one of them respond. It cannot be said too often that, be the crevice ever so small, it will yet suffice for all of the waters of heaven to pour into our soul. Every cup is stretched out to the unknown spring, and we are in a region where none think of aught of beauty. If we would ask of an angel, what is it that our souls do in the shadow? I believe the angel would answer, after having looked for many years perhaps and seen far more than the things the soul seems to do in the eyes of men. They transform into beauty all the little things that are given to them. We must admit that the human soul is possessed of singular courage. Resignedly does it labor its whole life long in the darkness whither most of us relegate it, where it is spoken to by none. There, never complaining, does it do all that is in its power lies, striving to tear out the pebbles we fling into it, the nucleus of eternal light that as peradventure they contain. And in the midst of its work, it is ever lying in wait for the moment when it may show to a sister who is more tenderly cared for, or who chances to be nearer, the treasures it has so toilfully amassed. But thousands of existences there are that no sister visits, thousands of existences wherein life has infused such timidity into the soul that it parts without saying a word, without even once having been able to deck itself with the humblest jewels of its humble crown. And yet, in spite of all, does it watch over everything from out of its invisible heaven. It warns and loves, it admires, attracts, and repels. At every fresh event does it rise to the surface where it lingers, till it be thrust down again, being looked upon as wearisome and insane. It wanders to and fro, like Cassandra at the gates of Atrides. It is ever giving utterance to words of shadowy truth, but there are none to listen. When we raise our eyes, it yearns for a ray of sun or star, that it may weave into a thought, or haply an impulse, which shall be unconscious and very pure. And if our eyes bring it nothing, still will it know how to turn its pitiful delusion into something ineffable, that it will conceal even till its death. When we love, how eagerly does it drink in the light from behind the closed door. Keen with expectation, it yet wastes not a minute, and the light that steals through the aperture becomes beauty and truth to the soul. If the door opens not, and how many lives are there wherein it does not open, it will go back into its prison, and its regret will perhaps be a loftier verity that shall never be seen, for we are now in the region of transformations whereof none may speak. And though nothing born this side of the door can be lost, yet does it never mingle with our life. I just said now that the soul changed into beauty the little things we gave to it. It would even seem, the more we think of it, that the soul has no other reason for existence, and that all of its activity is consumed in amassing, at the depths of us, a treasure of indescribable beauty. May not everything naturally turn into beauty were we not increasingly interrupting the arduous labors of our soul? Does not evil itself become precious so soon as it has gathered therefrom the deep-lying diamond of repentance? The act of injustice whereof you have been guilty, the tears you have caused to flow, Will not these end too by becoming so much radiance and love in your soul? Have you ever cast your eyes into this kingdom of purifying flame that is within you? Perhaps a great wrong may have been done to you today, the act itself being mean and disheartening. The mode of action of the basest and ugliest wrapped you round as your tears fell. But let some years elapse, and then give one look into your soul, and tell me whether beneath the recollection of the act you see not something that is already purer than thought. An indescribable, unnameable force that has naught in common with the forces of this world, a mysterious, inexhaustible spring of the other life, whereat you may drink for the rest of your days. And yet you will have rendered no assistance to the untiring queen. Other thoughts will have filled your mind, and it will be without your knowledge that the act will have been purified in the silence of your being, and will have flown into the precious waters that lie in the great reservoir of truth and beauty, which, unlike the shallower reservoir of true or beautiful thoughts, has ever unruffled surface and remains for all time out of reach of the breath of life. Emerson tells us that there is not an act or event in our life, but sooner or later casts off its outer shell and bewilders us by its sudden flights from the very depths of us, on high into the empyrean. And this is true to a far greater extent than Emerson had foreseen, for the further we advance in these regions, the diviner are the spheres we discover. We can form no adequate conception of what this silent activity of our souls that surrounds us may really mean. Perhaps you have spoken a pure word to one of your fellows by whom it has not yet been understood. You look upon it as lost and dismiss it from your mind, but one day, peradventure, the word comes up again extraordinarily transformed, and revealing the unexpected fruit it has borne in the darkness. Then silence once more falls over all. But it matters not. We have learned that nothing can be lost in the soul, and that even to the very pettiest there comes moments of splendor. It is unmistakably borne home to us that even the unhappiest and the most destitute of men have at the depths of their being, and in spite of themselves, a treasure of beauty that they cannot despoil. They have but to acquire the habit of dipping into this treasure. It suffices not that beauty should keep solitary festival in life. It has to become a festival of every day. There needs no great effort to be admitted into the ranks of those who have eyes no longer behold earth and flower and sky and glory in infinitesimal fragments, but indeed in sublime masses. And I speak here of flowers and sky that are purer and more lasting than those that we behold. Thousands of channels there are through which the beauty of our soul may sail, even into our thoughts. Above all is there the wonderful central channel of love. Is it not in love that are found the purest elements of beauty that can be offered to the soul? Some there are who do thus in beauty love each other, and to love thus means that little by little the sense of ugliness is lost, that one's eyes are closed to all the littleness of life, to all but the freshness and virginity of the very humblest of souls. Loving thus, we have no longer even the need to forgive. Loving thus, we can no longer have anything to conceal, for that the ever-present soul transforms all things into beauty. It is to behold evil insofar as only as it purifies indulgence and teaches us no longer to confound the sinner with the sin. Loving thus, do we raise on high within ourselves all those about us who have attained an eminence where failure has become impossible. Heights whence a paltry action has so far to fall that touching the earth it is compelled to yield up its diamond soul. It is to transform, though all unconsciously, the feeblest intention that hovers about us to illimitable movement. It is to summon all that is beautiful in earth, heaven, or soul to the banquet of love. Loving thus, we do indeed exist before our fellows as we exist before God. It means that the least gesture will call forth the presence of the soul with all of its treasure. No longer is there the need of death, disaster, or tears, For that the soul shall appear, a smile suffices. Loving thus, we perceive truth and happiness as profoundly as some of the heroes perceive it in the radiance of the greatest sorrow. It means that the beauty that turns into love is indistinguishable from the love that turns into beauty. It means to be able to no longer to tell where the ray of a star leaves off and the kiss of an ordinary thought begins. It means to have come so near to God that the angels possess us. Loving thus, the same soul will have been so beautified by us all that it will become little by little the unique angel mentioned in Swedenborg. It means that each day will reveal to us a new beauty in that mysterious angel, and that we shall walk together in a goodness that shall ever become more and more living, loftier and loftier. For there exists also a lifeless beauty, made up of the past alone. But the veritable love renders the past useless, and its approach creates a boundless future of goodness, without disaster and without tears. To love thus is but to free one's soul, and to become as beautiful as the soul thus freed. If in the emotion that the spectacle cannot fail to awaken in thee, says the great Plotinus when dealing with kindred matters, and of all the intellects known to me that of Plotinus draws the nearest to the divine. If in the emotion that the spectacle cannot fail to awaken in thee, thou proclaimest not that it is beautiful, and if plunging thine eyes into thyself thou dost not then feel the charm of beauty, it is in vain that thy disposition being such, thou shouldst seek the intelligible beauty, for thou wouldst seek it only with that which is ugly and impure. Therefore it is that the discourse we hold here is not addressed to all men. But if thou hast recognized beauty within thyself, see that thou rise to the recollection of the intelligible beauty. Part 2. Silence. Silence and secrecy, cries Carlyle. Altars might still be raised to them, were this an altar-building time for universal worship. Silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves together, that at length they may emerge full-formed and majestic into the daylight of life, which they are henceforth to rule. Not William, the silent only, but all the considerable men I have known, and the most undiplomatic and unstrategic of these forbore to babble of what they were creating and projecting. Nay, in thy own mean perplexities, do thou thyself but hold thy tongue for one day. On the morrow, how much clearer are thy purposes and duties? What wrack and rubbish have these mute workmen within thee swept away, when intrusive noises were shut out? Speech is too often not, as the Frenchman defined it, the art of concealing thought, but of quite stifling and suspending thought, so that there is none to conceal. Speech, too, is great, but not the greatest. As the Swiss inscription says, Sprechen est silbern, Schweigen ist golden. Speech is silver, and silence is golden. Or as I might rather express it, speech is of time, silence is of eternity. Bees will not work in darkness. Thought will not work except in silence. Neither will virtue work except in secrecy. It is idle to think that by means of words any real communication can ever pass from one man to another. The lips or the tongue may represent the soul, even as a cipher or a number may represent a picture of Memling. But from the moment that we have something to say to each other, we are compelled to hold our peace. And if at such times we do not listen to the urgent commands of silence, invisible though they may be, we shall have suffered an eternal loss that all the treasures of human wisdom cannot make good, for we shall have let slip the opportunity of listening to another soul, and of giving existence, be it only for an instant, to our own. And many lives there are in which such opportunities do not present themselves twice. It is only when life is sluggish within us that we speak, only at moments when reality lies far away, that we do not wish to be conscious of our brethren. And no sooner do we speak than something warns us that the divine gates are closing. Thus it comes about that we hug silence to us and are very misers of it, and even the most reckless will not squander it on the first comer. There is an instinct of the superhuman truths within us, which warns us that it is dangerous to be silent with one whom we do not wish to know or do not love. For words may pass between men, but let silence have its instant of activity, and it will never efface itself. And indeed, the true life, the only life that leaves a trace behind, is made up of silence alone. Bethink it well, and that silence to which you must again have resource, so that it may explain itself by itself. And if it be granted to you to descend for one moment into your soul, into the depths where the angels dwell, it is not the words spoken by the creature you loved so dearly that you will recall, or the gestures that he made, but it is above all the silences that you have lived together that will come back to you. For it is the quality of those silences that alone reveal the quality of your love and your souls. So far I have considered active silence only, for there is a passive silence, which is the shadow of sleep, of death, or non-existence. It is the science of lethargy, and is even less to be dreaded than speech, so long as it slumbers. But beware lest a sudden incident awake it, for then would its brother, the great active silence, at once rear himself upon his throne. Be on your guard. Two souls would draw near each other, the barriers would fall asunder, the gates fly open, and the life of every day be replaced by a life of deepest earnest, wherein all are defenseless, a life in which laughter dares not show itself, in which there is no obeying, in which nothing can evermore be forgotten. And it is because we all of us know of this somber power and its perilous manifestations that we stand in so deep dread of silence. We can bear when we need be the silence of ourselves, that of isolation, but the silence of many, silence multiplied, and above all the silence of a crowd, these are supernatural burdens whose inexplicable weight brings dread to the mightiest soul. We spend a goodly portion of our lives in seeking places where silence is not. No sooner have 2 or 3 men met than their one thought is to drive away the invisible enemy. And of how many ordinary friendships may it be said that their only foundation is the common hatred for silence, and if all efforts notwithstanding, it contrives to steal among a number of men, disquiet will fall upon them, and the restless eyes will wander in the mysterious direction of things unseen, and each man will hurriedly go his way, flying before the intruder, and henceforth they will avoid each other, dreading lest a similar disaster should again befall them, and suspicious as to whether there be not one among them who would treacherously throw open the gate to the enemy. In the lives of most of us, it will not happen more than twice or thrice that silence is really understood and freely admitted. It is only on the most solemn occasions that the inscrutable guest is welcomed, but when such come about, there are few who do not make the welcome worthy, for even in the lives of the most wretched, there are moments when they know how to act, even as though they knew already that which is known to the gods. Remember the day on which, without fear in your heart, you met your first silence. The dread hour had sounded. Silence went forth before your soul. You saw it rising from the unspeakable abyss of life, from the depths of your inner sea of horror or beauty, and you did not fly. It was at a homecoming, on the threshold of a departure, in the midst of a great joy, at the pillow of a deathbed, on the approach of a dire misfortune. Bethink you of those moments when all the secret jewels shone forth on you, and the slumbering truths sprung to life, and tell me whether silence then was not good and necessary, whether the caresses of your enemy you had so persistently shunned were not truly divine. The kisses of the silence of misfortune, and it is above all at times of misfortune that silence caresses us, can never be forgotten, and therefore it is that those to whom they have come, for more often than to others, are worthier than those others. They alone know perhaps how voiceless and unfathomable are the waters on which the fragile shell of daily life reposes. They have approach nearer to God, and the steps they have taken towards the light are steps that can never be lost, for the soul may not rise perhaps, but it can never sink. Silence, the great empire of silence, says Carlyle again. He who understood so well the empire of life which holds us, higher than the stars and deeper than the kingdom of death. Silence, and the great silent men, scattered here and there, each in his department, silently thinking, silently working, whom no morning newspaper makes mention of. They are the salt of the earth. A country that has none or few of these is in a bad way, like a forest which had no roots, which had all turned to leaves and boughs, which must soon wither and be no forest. But the real silence, which is greater still and more difficult of approach than the material silence of which Carlyle speaks, the real silence is not one of those gods that can desert mankind. It surrounds us on every side. It is the source of undercurrents of our life. And let one of us but knock with trembling fingers at the door of the abyss. It is always by the same attentive silence that the door will be opened. It is a thing that knows no limit, and before it all men are equal, and the silence of a king or slave in the presence of death or grief or love reveals the same features, hides beneath its impenetrable mantle the selfsame treasure. For this is the essential silence of our soul, our most inviolable sanctuary. And its secret can never be lost. And were the firstborn of men to meet the last inhabitant of earth, a kindred impulse would sway them, and they would be voiceless in their caresses. In their terror and in their tears, a kindred impulse would sway them, and all that could be said without falsehood would call for no spoken word. And the centuries notwithstanding, there would come to them at the same moment, as though one cradle had held them both, comprehension of that which the tongue shall not learn to tell before the world ceases. No sooner are the lips still than the soul awakens and sets forth on its labors, for silence is an element that is full of surprise, danger, and happiness, and in these the soul possesses itself in freedom. If it be indeed your desire to give yourself over to another, be silent, and if you fear being silent with him, unless this fear be the proud uncertainty or hunger of the love that yearns for prodigies, fly from him, for your soul knows well how far it may go. There are men in whose presence the greatest of heroes would not dare be silent, and even the soul that has nothing to conceal trembles lest another should discover its secret. Some there are that have no silence, and that kill the silence around them. And these are the only creatures that pass through life unperceived. To them it is not given to cross the zone of revelation, the great zone of the firm and faithful light. We cannot conceive what sort of man is he who has never been silent. It is to us as though his soul were featureless. We do not know each other yet, wrote to me one whom I hold dear above all others. We have not dared to be silent together, and it was true. Already did we love each other so deeply that we shrank from the superhuman ordeal. And each time that silence fell upon us, the angel of supreme truth, the messenger that brings to the heart the tidings of the unknown, each time did we feel that our souls were craving mercy on their knees, were begging for a few more hours of innocent falsehood, a few hours of ignorance, a few hours of childhood, and none the less its hour come. It is the sum of love, and it ripens the fruit of the soul, as the sun of the heaven ripens the fruit of the earth. But it is not without cause that men fear it, for none can ever tell what will be the quality of the silence which is about to fall upon them. Though all words may be akin, every silence differs from its fellow, and with rare exceptions, it is an entire destiny that will be governed by the quality of this first silence, which is descending upon two souls. They blend, we know not where, for the reservoirs of silence lie far above the reservoirs of thought, and the strange resultant brew is either sinisterly bitter or profoundly sweet. Two souls admirable both, and of equal power, may yet give birth to a hostile silence and wage pitiless war against each other in the darkness, while it may be that the soul of a convict shall go forth and commune in divine silence with the soul of a virgin. The result can never be foretold. All this comes to pass in a heaven that never warns, and therefore it is that the tenderest of lovers will often defer to the last hour of all solemn entry of the great revealer of the depths of our being. For they too are well aware the love that is truly love brings the most frivolous back to life's center. They too are well aware that all that had gone before was but as children playing outside the gates, and that it is now that the walls are falling and existence lying bare. Their silence will be even as are the gods within them. And if in this first silence there be not harmony, there can be no love in their souls, for silence will never change. It may rise or it may fall between two souls, but its nature can never alter, and even until the death of the lovers, it will remain the form, the attitude, and the power that were its own then, for the first time it came into the room. As we advance through life, it is more and more brought home to us that nothing takes place that is not in accord with some curious, preconceived design. And of this we never breathe a word. We scarcely dare to let our minds dwell upon it. But of its existence somewhere above our heads, we are absolutely convinced. The most fatuous of men smiles at the first encounters, as though he were the compliance of the destiny of his brethren. And in this domain, even those who can speak the most profoundly realize they perhaps more than others that words can never express the real, special relationship that exists between two beings. Were I to speak to you at this moment of the gravest things of all, of love, death, or destiny, it is not love, death, or destiny that I should touch, and my efforts notwithstanding, there would always remain between us a truth which had not been spoken, which we had not even thought of speaking, and yet it is this truth only, voiceless though it has been, which will have lived with us for an instant, and by which we shall have been wholly absorbed. For that truth was our truth as regards death, destiny, or love, and it was in silence only that we could perceive it. And nothing, save only the silence, will have had any importance. "My sisters," says a child in the fairy story, "you have each of you a secret thought, and I wish to know it. We too have something that people wish to know, but it is hidden far above the secret thought. It is our secret silence. But all questions are useless when our spirit is alarmed. Its own agitation becomes a barrier to the second life, that it lives in this secret, and would we know what it is that lies hidden there, we must cultivate silence among ourselves. For it is then only that for one instant the eternal flower unfolds their petals, the mysterious flowers whose form and color are ever changing in harmony with the soul that is by their side. As gold and silver are weighted in pure water, so does the soul test its weight in silence, and the words that we let fall have no meaning apart from the silence that wraps around them. If I tell someone that I love him, as I may have told 100 others, my words will convey nothing to him, but the silence which will ensue, if I do indeed love him, will make clear in what depths lie the roots of my love, and will in its turn give birth to a conviction that shall itself be silent, and in the course of a lifetime this silence and this conviction will never again be the same. Is it not silence that determines and fixes the Savior of love? Deprived of it, love would lose its eternal essence and perfume. Who has not known those silent moments which separated the lips to reunite the souls? It is these that we must ever seek. There is no silence more docile than the silence of love, and it is indeed the only one that we may claim for ourselves alone. The other great silences, those of death, grief, destiny, do not belong to us. They come towards us at their own hour, following in the tract of events, and those whom they do not meet do not reproach themselves, But we can all go forth to meet the silences of love. They lie in wait for us night and day at our threshold, and are no less beautiful than their brothers. And it is thanks to them that those who have seldom wept may know the life of the soul almost as intimately as to those whom much grief has come. And therefore it is that such of us as have loved deeply have learned many secrets that are unknown to others. For thousands and thousands of things quiver in silence on the lips of true friendship and love, and are not to be found in the silence of other lips, to which friendship and love are unknown. Section 3. The Invisible Goodness. It is a thing said to me one evening, the sage I had chanced to meet by the seashore, whereon the waves were breaking almost noiselessly. It is a thing that we scarcely notice, that none seem to take into account, and yet do I conceive it to be one of the forces that safeguard mankind. In 1,000 diverse ways do the gods from whom we spring reveal themselves within us. But it may be well that this unnoticed secret goodness, to which sufficiently directed allusion has never yet been made, is the purest token of their eternal life. Whence it comes, we know not. It is there in its simplicity, smiling on the threshold of our soul, and those in whom its smiles lie deepest or shine forth most frequently may make us suffer day and night, and they will, yet shall it be beyond our power to cease to love them. It is not of this world, and still are there few agitations of ours in which it takes not part. It cares not to reveal itself, even in look or tear. Nay, it seeks concealment for reasons one cannot divine. It is as though it were afraid to make use of its power. It knows that its most involuntary movement will cause immortal things to spring to life about it, and we are miserly with immortal things. Why are we so fearful lest we exhaust the heaven within us? We dare not act upon the whisper of the God who inspires us. We are afraid of everything that cannot be explained by word or gesture, and we shut our eyes to all that we do, ourselves notwithstanding, in the empire where explanations are vain. Whence comes the timidity of the divine in man? For truly might it be said that the nearer a movement of our soul approaches the divine, so much the more scrupulously do we conceal it from the eyes of our brethren. Can it be that man is nothing but a frightened God? Or has the command been laid upon us that the superior powers must not be betrayed? Upon all that does not form part of this too visible world there rests the tender meekness of the little ailing girl, for whom her mother will not send the strangers to come to the house. And therefore it is that this secret goodness of ours has never yet passed through the silent portals of our soul. It lives within us like a prisoner forbidden to approach the barred window of her cell. But indeed, what matter though it not approach? Enough that it be there, hide as it may, let it but raise its head, move a link of its chain or open its hand, and the prison is illuminated. The pressure of radiance from within bursts open the iron barrier, and then suddenly there yawns a gulf between words and beings, a gulf peopled with agitated angels. Silence falls over all. The eyes turned away for a moment, and the two souls embrace tearfully on the threshold. It is not a thing that comes from this earth of ours, and all descriptions can be of no avail. They who would understand must have in themselves, too, the same point of sensibility. If you have never in your life felt the power of your invisible goodness, go no further. It would be useless. But are there really any who have not felt this power? And have the worst of us never been invisibly good? I know not. Of so many in this world does the aim seem to be the discouragement of the divine in their soul, and yet there needs but one instant of respite for the divine to spring up again, and even the wickedest are not incessantly on their guard, and hence doubtless has it arisen that so many of the wicked are good, unseen of all, whereas divers saints and sages are not invisibly good. More than once have I been the cause of suffering, he went on, even as each being is the cause of suffering about him. I have caused suffering because we are in a world where all is held together by invisible threads, in a world where none are alone, and where the gentlest gesture of love or kindliness may so often wound the innocence of our side. I have caused suffering too because there are times when the best and tenderest are impelled to seek I know not what part of themselves in the grief of others. For indeed there are seeds that only spring up in our soil beneath the rain of tears shed because of us, and nonetheless do these seeds produce good flowers and sultry fruit. What would you? It is no law of our making, and I know not whether I would dare to love the man who had made no one weep. Frequently indeed will the greatest suffering be caused by those whose love is the greatest, for a strange, timid, tender cruelty is most often the anxious sister of love. On all sides does love search for proofs of love, and the first proofs, who's not prone to discover them in the tears of the beloved? Even death could not suffice to reassure the lover who dared to give ear to the unreasoning claims of love, for to the intimate cruelty of love, the instant of death seems too brief. Over beyond death there is yet room for a sea of doubts, and even in those who die together, may disquiet still linger as they die. Long, slowly falling tears are needed here. Grief is love's first food, and every love that has not been fed on a little pure suffering must die like the babe that one had tried to nourish on the nourishment of a man. Will the love inspired by the woman who always brought the smile to your lips be quite the same as the love you feel for her who at times called forth your tears? Alas, needs must love weep, and often indeed is it the very moment that the sobs burst forth that love's chains are forged and tempered for life. Thus, he continued, I have caused suffering because I loved, and also have I caused suffering because I did not love. But how great was the difference in the two cases! In the one, the slowly dropping tears of the well-tried love seemed already to know at the depths of them that they were bedwelling all that was ineffable in our united souls. In the other, the poor tears knew that they were falling in solitude on a desert. But it is at those very moments when the soul is all ear or happily all soul that I have recognized that the might of an invisible goodness that could offer to the wretched tears of an expiring love the divine illusions of a love on the eve of birth. Has there ever come to you one of those sorrowful evenings when dejection lay heavy upon your unsmiling kisses, and it at length dawned upon your soul that it had been mistaken? With direst difficulty did your words ring forth in the cold air of the separation that was to be final. You were just about to part forever, and your almost lifeless hands were outstretched for the farewell of a departure that should know no return, when suddenly your soul made an imperceptible movement within itself. On that instant did the soul by the side of you awake on the summits of its being. Something sprang into life in regions loftier, far than the love of jaded lovers. And for all that the bodies might shrink asunder, henceforth would the souls never forget that for an instant they had beheld each other high above the mountains they had never seen, and that for a second space they had been good with a goodness they had never known until that day. What can this be, this mysterious movement that I speak of here in the connection with love only, but which may well take place in the smallest events of life? Is it I know not what sacrifice or inner embrace? Is it the profoundest desire to be soul for a soul, or the conscious, ever quickening within us of the presence of a life that is invisible but equal to our own? Is it all that is admirable and sorrowful in the mere act of living that at such moments floods our being? Is it the aspect of life, one and indivisible? I know not. But in truth, it is then that we feel that there lurks somewhere an unknown force. It is then that we feel that we are the treasures of an unknown God who loves all, that not a gesture of this God may pass unperceived, and that we are at length in the region of things that do not betray themselves. Certain it is that from the day of our birth to the day of our death, we never emerge from this clearly defined region, but wander in God like helpless sleepwalkers, or like the blind who despairingly seek the very temple in which they do indeed befind themselves. We are there in life, man against man, soul against soul, and day and night are spent under arms. We never see each other. We never touch each other. We see nothing but bucklers and helmets. We touch nothing but iron and brass. But let a tiny circumstance come from the simplest of the sky for one instant, only cause the weapons to fall. There are not always tears beneath the helmet, childlike smiles behind the buckler. And is not another verity revealed? He thought for a moment and then went on more sadly. A woman, as I believe I told you just now, a woman to which I had caused suffering against my will. For the most careful of us scatter suffering around them without their knowledge. A woman to whom I had caused suffering against my will revealed to me one evening the sovereign power of this invisible good. To be good, we must needs have suffering, but perhaps it is necessary to have caused suffering before we can become better. This was brought home to me that evening. I felt that I had arrived alone at that sad zone of kisses, when it seemed to us that we were visiting the hovels of the poor, while she who had lingered on the road was still smiling in the palace of our first days. Love, as men understand it, was dying between us, like a child stricken with a disease come to knows not once a disease that has no pity. We said nothing. It would be impossible for me to recall what my thoughts were at that earnest moment. They were doubtless of no significance. I was probably thinking of the last face I had seen, of the quivering gleam of a lantern at a deserted street corner, and nevertheless everything took place in a light 1,000 times purer, 1,000 times higher than had been intervened all of the forces of pity and love which I commanded in my thoughts and in my heart. We parted, and not a word was spoken, but at one and the same time we had understood our inexpressible thought. We know not what another love had sprung to life, a love that demands not words, the little attentions and smiles of ordinary love. We had never met again. Perhaps centuries will elapse before we ever do meet again. Much is to learn, much to forget. Through worlds I shall traverse not a few, before we shall again find ourselves in the same movement of the soul as on that evening. But we can well afford to wait. And thus, ever since that day, I have greeted, in all places, even in the very bitterest of moments, the beneficent presence of this marvelous power. He who has but once clearly seen it shall never again find it possible to turn away from its face. You will often behold it smiling in the last retreat of hatred, in the depths of the cruelest tears, and yet does it not reveal itself to the eyes of the body? Its nature changes from the moment that it manifests itself by means of an exterior act, and we are no longer in the truth according to the soul, but in the kind of falsehood as conceived by man. Goodness and love that are self-conscious have no influence on the soul, for they have departed from the kingdoms where they have their dwelling. But do they only remain blind? They can soften destiny itself. I have known more than one man who performed every act of kindness and mercy without touching a single soul, and I have known others who seemed to live in falsehood and injustice, yet were no souls driven from them, nor did any for an instant even believe that these men were not good. Nay, more, even those who do not know you, who are merely told of your acts of goodness and deeds of love. If you be not good according to the invisible goodness, these even will feel that something is lacking, and they will never be touched in the depths of their being. One might almost believe that there exists somewhere a place where all is waited in the presence of spirits, or perhaps out yonder, the other side of the night, a reservoir of certitudes, whither the silent herd of souls flock every morning to slake their thirst. Perhaps we do not yet know what the word to love means. There are within us lives in which we love unconsciously. To love thus means more than to have pity, to make inner sacrifices, to be anxious to help and give happiness. It is the thing that lies 1,000 fathoms deeper, where our softest, swiftest, strongest words cannot reach it. At moments we might believe it is to be a recollection, furtive, but excessively keen, of the great primitive unity. There is in this love a force that nothing can resist. Which of us, and he questioned himself, the side of the light from which our gaze is habitually averted, which of us but will find in himself the recollection of certain strange workings of this force? Which of us, when by the side of the most ordinary person perhaps, but has suddenly become conscious of an advent of something that none had summoned? Was it the soul, or perhaps life, that had turned within itself like a sleeper on the point of awakening? I know not, nor did you know, and no one spoke of it, but you did not separate from each other as though nothing had happened. To love thus is to love according to the soul, and there is no soul that does not respond to this love, for the soul of man is a guest that has gone hungry these centuries back, and never has it to be summoned twice to the nuptial feast. The souls of all our brethren are ever hovering about us, craving for a caress and only waiting for the signal. But how many beings there are who all their life long have not dared make such a signal. It is the disaster of our entire existence that we live thus away from our soul and stand in such dread of its slightest movement. Did we but allow it to smile frankly in its silence and its radiance, we should be already living in eternal life. We have only to think for an instant of how much it succeeds in accomplishing during those rare moments when we knock off its chains, for it is our custom to enchain it as though it were distraught. What it does in love, for instance, for there we do permit it at times to approach the lattices of external life. And would it not be in accordance with the primal truth of all men were to feel that they were face to face with each other, even as the woman feels with the man she loves? This invisible and divine goodness, of which I only speak here because of its being one of the surest and nearest signs of the unceasing activity of our soul, this invisible and divine goodness ennobles in indecisive action all that it has underconsciously touched. Let him who has a grievance against his fellow descend into himself and seek out whether he never has been good in the presence of that fellow. For myself, I have never met anyone by whose side I have felt my invisible goodness bestir itself, without he has become, at that very instant, better than myself. Be good at the depths of you, and you will discover that those who surround you will be good, even to the same depths. Nothing responds more infallibly to the secret cry of goodness than the secret cry of goodness that is near. While you are actively good in the invisible, all those who are approaching you will unconsciously do things that they could not do by the side of any other man. Therein lies a force that has no name, a spiritual rivalry that knows no resistance. It is as though these were the actual place, where is the sensitive spot of our soul, for there are souls that seem to have forgotten their existence and to have renounced everything that enables the being to rise. But once touched here, they all draw themselves erect in the divine plains of the secret goodness. The most humble of souls cannot endure defeat. And yet it is possible that nothing is changing in the life one sees. But is it only that which matters? And is our existence indeed confined to the actions we can take in our hand like stones on the high road? If you ask yourself, as we are told we should ask every evening, what of immortal have I done today? Is it always on the material side that we can count, weigh, and measure unerringly? Is it there that you must begin your search? Is it possible for you to cause extraordinary tears to flow? Is it possible that you may fill a heart with unheard of certitudes and give eternal life unto a soul, and no one shall know of it, nor shall you even know yourself? It may be that nothing is changing. It may be, were it put to the test, all would crumble, and that this goodness we speak of would yield to the smallest fear. It matters not. Something divine has happened, and somewhere must our God have smiled. May it not be the supreme aim of life thus to bring to birth inexplicable within ourselves? And do we know how much we add to ourselves when we awake something of the incomprehensible that slumbers in every corner? Here you have awakened love, which will not fall asleep again. The soul that your soul has regarded, that has wept with you, the holy tears of the solemn joy that none may behold, will bear you no resentment, not even in the midst of torture. It will not so even feel the need of forgiving. So convinced is it of one knows not what, that nothing can henceforth dim or efface the smile that it wears within, for nothing can ever separate two souls which, for an instant, have been good together. This book was lovingly narrated by the great worker.